What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So I mentioned I would try to keep up to date with the pre-order and stock situation around the Switch 2 as we head towards launch, and it looks like we at least have some information for a big box retailer that could have maybe units available for purchase on launch, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Microsoft moving another big core franchise over to PlayStation that caught a lot of people off guard, even though I guess by now it really shouldn't. And Sega has been talking a lot about bringing back some of their older IPs. And, well, the most recent one we get to talk about today is Ecco the Dolphin, and I did not see that one coming. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're gonna start today with an interesting idea for customizing the Switch 2 or the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. This was linked to in a tweet by Stealth, which you can see over on AliExpress. These are like the covers for the sides on the Switch 2 Joy-Cons, and the idea here is you would have to remove that plastic to get to the screws that then hold the Switch 2 Joy-Cons together. The idea being they're trying to hide any and all screw holes, whereas on the current Joy-Cons, they're right there out in the open. But because of that, there's kind of a side effect to where it's just a piece of plastic you pop off with a spudger, and if you have them, say, 3D printed or manufactured like on AliExpress, you can change the color to, I guess, whatever you want. Now, the only thing here is it may clash with the colors underneath of, say, the joysticks or on that part that then magnetically attaches to the Switch 2 body. So maybe that's a way that Nintendo can further customize if they want to, because keep in mind, this is third party, but I have done a video in the past on even the PlayStation 5 DualSense has a similar setup to where it has just a piece of plastic sort of on the bottom of the controller that you pop off to get to more of the screws, and just changing that out with a different color for the plastic is enough to legitimately customize the controller how you want with a bit of an accent there. And those videos do really, really well. Just something basic, something easy, rather than having to tear the entire Joy-Con apart and get it back together, hopefully, which is something a lot of people don't really want to try with the Switch Joy-Cons, especially not the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. So it seems like a fun little thing you can do to at least put your own twist on the Joy-Con 2 controllers. Also, with Clair Obscur right now being like the talk of the internet, we are seeing more and more information around the backstory for this game get out there. And in fact, you can see this is posted up. This is over on the BBC, as they were talking with some of the developers, in this case, the director for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, just kind of asking exactly how this came together. And they said they were bored in their job and wanting to do something different. Of course, as they were working at Ubisoft at the time, this is, okay, here we go. Guillaume Broche? Hey, you know what? Your game's good. There you go. Good enough, right? But they were, of course, like millions, as they say, others around the world here, working at Ubisoft, which, I mean, again, Ubisoft has a lot of games now that are becoming very cookie cutter, have become cookie cutter over several years now. So you sit there and you're like, what else could I do? And they even mentioned that it's something that probably wouldn't find its way up the chain of command in terms of a pitch at a place like Ubisoft, or to really any big AAA studio that has to take a risk whenever they greenlight a game. Something like a turn-based RPG is pretty difficult to get greenlit with a decent enough backing. But that's all it was. You know, I'm bored. What else can I do? I don't know. Let's make this awesome game called Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It took them 5 years, but hey, it's out now, and it is an awesome game. Fully recommend checking it out. Oh, and just want to point this out for anyone who did do the 20.0.0 update on your Switch, and you're having an issue maybe with a black screen on boot up, so it's kind of just bricked. Nintendo did release a quick update to fix that. That is 20.0.1. It's available right now, and if you're someone who is sort of just stuck right now and your Switch won't start up, you may have to put it into maintenance mode. And in that case, you'd be able to just load up this update, which pretty much exists to fix that problem. To get into maintenance mode, you hold down volume plus and minus, and then press the power button to turn on, and then select system update, at which point it'll walk you through all of the steps. So just want to throw that out there, just in case any of you out there are stuck after this latest update. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Nintendo Switch 2, as I still see a mad scramble online as people are trying to find a pre-order for the system or, well, buy them secondhand on places like eBay. And I've been checking, and yes, many of them have been selling in the $700 range, and Yeah, it's a shame to see that because obviously it just continues to enable the reselling and the scalping that most likely will be continuing on well after the Switch 2 comes out, considering, well, it comes out in June. You have a few months there as restocks are happening, and then you're off into the holiday season when demand will spike once again. So this is probably going to be a minimum year-long thing of people just trying to get the system and it just being sold out constantly. So I recommend, again, staying away from the secondhand market that's marked up generally 100% minimum, like it's twice as much. But it appears, at least at launch leading up to June 5th, we may have some retail stores just have systems ready to go. Now, it's of course going to be very dependent on your region and how many your own store gets, but in this case, for example, Target is currently being pointed to, which we can see this was posted by Nintendo Prime. It's been receiving some what look like screenshots from different people with the sort of the back end of Target's system, saying they were informed that all Target locations will have roughly 60 half and half. So we have the $450 model, and then the $500 bundle, of course, comes with Mario Kart World. The Switch 2 system's on launch day. So he has the two photos here. And yeah, there are thousands of Targets, of course, right now, but my thing with this is it's definitely going to vary, as I mentioned. So as we saw with GameStop, it was all over the place. It was like some had 30, some had 120. Like these are all the images that people were throwing up online, as Jake Randall, as an example, is calling for people, hey, take a picture of how many Switch 2s your GameStop has with the picture on the front of the door. And I saw them all over the place. I mean, just it was a constant influx of 30, 60, 70, 90, 120. So I'm kind of thinking the same thing with Target, where it'll just be all over the place. But this is at least an avenue if you get to launch day and there's no Switch 2 in sight, you didn't get the pre-order in, and you're kind of hanging out waiting. I'm not sure how Target is going to handle this. Again, it's been a while since we've had a release like this. You got to go back to the PS5 back in 2020 at this point. But I feel like Target may just go the route of whoever's here first gets it, so I'm wondering if they're legitimately just going to have a line outside of Target, as I'm sure many people will, in fact, do that, especially after seeing what happened with the Switch 2. When the pre-orders went live, people weren't able to get them, and they just went out to GameStop at 2 a.m., I'll just hang out here and wait for them to open. So Target might want to figure that out ahead of time. However, this also makes me wonder about places like Walmart or Best Buy, as Best Buy will be open for the midnight release. Are they going to have just extras that are there and available? Because these systems would most likely be there a day or two beforehand. So they'll probably know how many they'll have that are just not pre-ordered and available for purchase for walk-ins. So if we get word of that, I'll let you guys know, as I'm sure there are many of you who would indeed like to pick the system up as soon as possible, and yes, that includes at midnight. But for now, Target seems like they're gearing up at least to have extra stock of the $450 and $500 bundle at launch. Next up, let's talk about another core franchise from Microsoft making the jump to PlayStation. And it was really funny the way this worked out, because I saw the announcement from PlayStation's account, and, well, take a look. They say, rev up your Lancers. Gears of War Reloaded comes to PS5 on August 26th, remastered from the ground up. And it wasn't just me who looked at this and said, whoa, that looks weird. 5.4 million views on this message alone, 50,000 plus likes. It is weird. It sees them like crossing lines, like, okay, Microsoft, there's no red lines, and we mean it. So here's Gears of War. Forza Horizon, already there. We all know what's next, right? It starts off with Halo. It seems like it might end with Halo here pretty soon in terms of Halo, Gears, and Forza. Now, here's the thing. We already had a Gears of War Remastered and Gears of War Ultimate, so it does seem kind of weird to be like, okay, now Gears of War Reloaded. But keep in mind, they have to figure out which one to put on PlayStation first, and this does make the most sense. So why wouldn't you go back, I guess, in this case, and make sure everyone has this update available, or this upgrade, I guess, which we'll get to here in a minute when it comes to the pricing. But it is coming out August 26th, all right? So we're how many, three and a half months off from this release. Xbox Series, they said Xbox PC, which was a little odd. I said, oh, that's strange, but I guess just in general, that's how they're mentioning their like just the Xbox application on PC, of course PS5, and then also through Steam. It is day one on Game Pass, so if you have Game Pass, you're already set up and ready to go there. 4K 60 FPS in campaign, 120 FPS in multiplayer. They have plenty of assets and images and stuff showing the difference from Gears of War Ultimate and then Reloaded, where you just have the image getting much, much larger, of course, with 4K. They also have 4K assets, remastered textures, zero load screens during the entire campaign, which that's kind of cool, so it'll be very seamless all the way throughout. They have crossplay and cross progression, so we'll have Xbox users fighting against PlayStation users, fighting against PC users all at once. And the cross progression is pretty cool, just being able to go between Xbox, PlayStation, or PC, depending on where you want to play at any given moment. Now, if you own the digital version, specifically digital, they say, of Gears of War Ultimate, you do receive a free upgrade. So that's good news there. It's not, oh yeah, now you got to buy this again for $40, which, that's not bad. I mean, look, I would have preferred to spend a little more. So let's say they launch this, we'll even say 70. Just, okay, look, that's kind of where we're sitting when it comes to a lot of these not big $80 games. A tier below would be 70 then, which I know it sounds crazy now, but if it had Gears of War 1, 2, and 3, I mean, Judgment is out there somewhere, I get, but 1, 2, and 3 minimum, and they have sort of this remastered treatment, I think I would have preferred that sort of collection. However, we do have Gears of War Reloaded coming up in August, and you know what? It does make me wonder, what exactly does Microsoft have in their June showcase if this is just a random X or Twitter X announcement? What do they have? Because this is outrageous if this is just just drop it on Monday, whatever. And you see the reaction because it's Gears of War going to PlayStation. Now, we did have, like, MVG made a video around it, and there's been word about how there was at least a prototype of Gears of War for PlayStation 3, which was really interesting, but it never left the walls, I guess, of Epic and Microsoft at that time. This, though, releasing, it's a big deal. And it just continues to show that Microsoft really is to the point of our games are going everywhere, and that's kind of it. So, yes, I do expect Halo to be next. And I'm trying to figure out how exactly they do this, because I would have said I don't think Gears is just a random Monday announcement, but there it is. So maybe Tuesday and I don't know. It seems weird the way they're doing this, but Halo should be, I think, a bigger deal. That should be the really big deal for them. It's been their mascot since they broke on or showed up into the console scene in 2001, and it's been there ever since. So that jumping over to PlayStation will be the big deal. And I think it's going to be pretty soon. So maybe that's something they have just lined up for the showcase. And then on top of that, people are wondering, where are the Switch 2 ports? What is happening here? These games, I mean, the Switch 2 is announced. They can make their cards with the Switch 2 logo if that's what's happening. Well, the truth is, some of the games right now for Microsoft don't seem to be ready for Switch 2 yet. So one example right now that's been discussed, we'll say, out there is like Oblivion. People look at this, oh, it's going to the Switch 2 this year or something. No, I don't think so. I think we might be a little ways off from that one going to Switch 2, which might seem weird to people, but it's just, there's a lot of stuff Microsoft's doing right now. They have a ridiculous cadence of releases, and I think at least with June, they will have some Switch 2 stuff there, and who knows, maybe Phil Spencer shows up in the Nintendo Direct that's probably going to happen in June as well, and they announce some Switch 2 versions of their first-party games. It's a very strange world right now. Very strange times in gaming. So who knows what's going to happen, apparently on any given Monday. Next up, speaking of who knows what's going to happen on any given Monday, let's talk about Ecco the Dolphin. We know Sega has already been going back, and they've been grabbing up some of their older, somewhat forgotten intellectual properties and franchises and trying to reintroduce them, remaster them, set them up, maybe for stuff even outside of gaming, as that's a huge push right now by all these different publishers. And we see them talk about things like Jet Set Radio being a big one right now, Shinobi and others. So when you hear the words Ecco the Dolphin, you go, huh, really? They're going to do that? Yeah, it seems like it, and the way, once again, this was shared was kind of strange, as it was in an Xbox Wire article and interview. We can see this posted up, though, on their site, and they say, this month we're thrilled to share an exclusive interview with Ed Annunziata, where he announces a brand new Ecco the Dolphin game in development and reflects on the inspiration behind Ecco and the game's lasting impact on environmental storytelling in gaming. The question straight up was, what does the future hold for gaming's favorite dolphin? They say, me and the entire original team are going to remaster the original Ecco the Dolphin and Tides of Time games. Then we will make a new third game with contemporary play and GPU sensibilities. Stay tuned to EchoTheDolphin.com, which, if you take a look at EchoTheDolphin.com, there is currently a countdown that says 8,521 hours. So like next year or something? Okay. All right then. So interesting that they go back and they decide to remaster some of the older Ecco the Dolphin games, but it does make sense. You know, you go back, you work on projects that are lower in budget, reintroduce the character and the franchise, see what kind of interest you have, and from there I assume you can sort of figure out what kind of budget you want to put behind a brand new title, which it's been a while since we have an Ecco the Dolphin game, and that makes you wonder if, all right, what can they do? What ideas do they have when it comes to newer technology with Ecco the Dolphin? So I remember back then, like, I'm not the biggest Ecco person, but playing it on the Sega Genesis was really funny because this was that age of just renting whatever's on the shelf. Just, okay, there's a dolphin here that's different from everything around it. All right, I'll rent that. Go home with it. You're swimming around as a little dolphin, and you jump too high in the air, and it's just supernatural stuff from there. So it definitely threw a bit of a curveball at me. Remember when I was playing it? And I do wonder if it's something that would be able to catch on now. And I feel like it could if they have some good ideas, or at least original ideas. I always thought that, like, Maneater, if you've played that to me kind of lays a bit of the groundwork or the skeleton for how they could at least have Ecco be a bit more arcadey, a bit better to control in 3D space, and then maybe play into the RPG side of things like that did, where it was kind of like their take on Jaws as an action RPG. But I am interested, and honestly, the remaster would be kind of fun to go back and kind of revisit it there. Although it's very easy, of course, to just fire up and play Ecco the Dolphin pretty much on anything through an emulator. But I'd be curious just to see what they have up their sleeve for the remaster side, especially when it comes to maybe some museum or memorabilia stuff they can have to go along with it in some kind of, I don't know, a retrospective option in the game. So really cool stuff to at least see something happening with Ecco the Dolphin. Again, it's a weird Monday yesterday. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about some, I guess, unfortunate news for people who are looking at the $80 price tag and they're just shaking their head. It's not happening. No $80. And trust me, I'm looking at this like, hold on. How we went from 60 to 70 in 2020. Went from 70 to 80 now already. 4.5 years later? When do we go to 80 to 90? Like, I'm thinking even further in the future, is the PS6 generation going to jump us to 90? It's kind of like, okay, the ceiling of the price point keeps going up. Eventually, the customer base is going to say, nah, you know what, this is too expensive. Well, it doesn't seem right now like the $80 mark is it just yet. And while we saw that with Mario Kart World, where it's at least the bundle, which at least that's at 50 with the game included, then technically the difference is selling out rapidly. Even Mario Kart World on the Switch 2 at 80 seems to be like selling well enough. But we at least have on the PlayStation side a certain game that was announced for pre-order with Ghost of Yotei, and let's take a look at this. This is over on PlayStation Lifestyle, where they say the more expensive version is Ghost of Yotei's Digital Deluxe Edition, which mostly offers additional in-game cosmetics. The most notable items this version contains is an early unlock of Traveler's Maps and a sword kit. Yet more players seem happy to fork out an additional $10, again that makes it $80 total, for the Digital Deluxe Edition, charting ahead of the base $70 version in multiple regions on PlayStation Network. Now, I have to double check to see if it's revenue-based or units-based, but either way, it doesn't matter as much because it's a $10 difference, so revenue between the two in terms of on PlayStation Store would be kind of negligible in terms of rankings. What we're seeing here, though, is yes, seems like the $80 version is at least selling decently well, enough to jump ahead of the $70 version, and it still makes you look at the internet where, again, it's a lot of fighting about the $8 price tag, people who are saying they're going to boycott it and stuff. And then it just seems like, I guess, gamers and mainstream are like, yeah, it's annoying that it's more expensive, But not only do I really want to play the $70 game, I actually want to go up $10 more for the digital deluxe because of the outfit's cool. Like, it really is that. Like, the outfit looks cool. And oh, look, there's an early unlock for the maps or something. I'm looking at this as the base game at 70. That's my strategy for Ghost of Yotei. I gotta tell you, though, the more the mainstream seems to accept $80, the more the publishers are gonna push and push and push, and then somehow try to eventually make the case for the $100 game. And it feels like that's coming up faster and faster every year now. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, have you played the first Gears of War before? Okay, 57% say yes, 43% say no. I saw some people in the comments kind of recall times of playing through the campaign and co-op, which you can still do here, so it's kind of uncommon now, I know, but Gears of War, I remember back then on the 360, well known for the same screen co-op with campaign, and it was awesome. I know a lot of people have memories of like multiplayer and stuff with the Gears franchise. Something about just that, like that split screen campaign with a friend was just so much fun. So I think in this case, it's going to be more about the multiplayer for me this time around. But also back then with the 360 and the PS3, it was a bit more common to find split-screen couch co-op games, especially with the larger AAA style games where they're just trying to sell multiple copies when it comes to co-op and another copy and another system for the most part. But I think in this case, I'll be more about the multiplayer side of things. It seems like people are really excited for that as well, and I'll check it out. I will be there, though, ready to roll with Halo multiplayer whenever it does make the jump over to PlayStation 5 and see how that audience deals with it. And we'll finish up with the comments of the day. We'll start with the members comment here. This is from Reshiram, says, May 2025, we're still talking about Switch 2 leaks. Beautiful. I mean, look, we got to start getting ready. The Switch 2 Pro is right around the corner. And then after that, Switch 3, it's going to be a busy 6 months. Now, I think in this case, though, you're still going to see a lot of information get out there early about, well, probably accessories, definitely games. And isn't that what people like to hear more about as opposed to hardware? We went down the rabbit hole of the Switch Pro and like the Switch 2 was, it seemed like that went on forever. But finally, we're a month out from the hardware actually releasing. And then June 5th, what's right around the corner, that summer E3 time, and we're expecting a direct. So yeah, get ready, I'm sure, for more rumors and leaks because it's about to get really, really fun, I'll say, after the Switch 2 comes out. And then we'll take a look at the comment of the day here. This is from Bryce, who says, a Chrono Trigger remake would have to be absolutely perfect. It is one of the greatest games ever made, and messing that up would be worse than never remaking it. That's true. It is definitely a risk, but I mean, there's a ton of reward if they can pull it off. But it's like, hey, if they remake it, what do they change that maybe the fans don't really agree with or like? Does it become a big controversial talking point online as opposed to you move it over to an HD 2D remake kind of situation? It looks, yeah, sure, borderline remaster, but it does not only modernize the game a bit in terms of the visuals while still keeping that retro aesthetic, but also just puts it on a bunch of other platforms currently, like modern platforms, and makes it widely available to where you can have a new audience show up and be like, wow, look how awesome this game is. But it's this weird situation where Square, I don't know what's going on with this game, because at the very least, you just move it over to the platforms. But knowing Square, hey, maybe they really do remake it, and then alternate realities, time travel, hey, sky's the limit there. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Say, if you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to take a trip back to 2004 and find out how much systems cost a few years in to the console generation. And spoiler, it wasn't more money than it originally launched for. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.